Yes, so welcome to this session. This is how to reach your Hispanic neighbors. We are in room number 4, and I am Beatriz Hoppe. I work for Lutheran Hour Ministries, doing Hispanic ministries, reaching out, producing resources to help churches, congregations, individuals to reach out to their Hispanic neighbors and communities. Today with me, I have 2 more people that will be helping me in presenting. One of them is taking a picture right now. That's my boss. So we have to behave here. He is Reverend Dr. Chad Lakis. He's the director for North American Ministries, the regional director for North America within LHM. And he is amazingly supportive of all the work that we do to reach out to Hispanics. And the reason why I thought it was appropriate for him to come and talk to you for a little is because everything that I say it from my Hispanic roots perspective. But he will say it from his Anglo perspective, okay? So he is one, his mentality is like yours, his culture is like yours, so he's coming like from the same place that you are coming from. The other guest that we have today that is going to speak also for like 5 minutes, no more, is my husband, Hector. I know him. So, just in case, so we make sure. Oh, Robert, yes, I'm sorry. My husband, Hector Hoppe. So he, my husband, that's the reason why we came to the States from Argentina. He worked for CPH, Concordia Publishing House, for 25 years, developing resources, mainly in Spanish and mainly theological resources. And now he is the preacher of one of the programs that we have in Spanish, Para el Camino, for the journey, which is kind of something like the Lutheran Hour radio program, and he does other stuff also for LHM. And but the reason why he's here to talk to you is because he also teaches for the Center for Hispanic Studies of the Concordia Seminary in St. Louis, and he has had very direct contact with immigrants that have come to the States and want to become pastors, Lutheran LCMS pastors, okay, but are coming from a totally different background and have no idea whatsoever what it means to be Lutheran, okay? So I thought that could bring also a very good perspective. And on the other hand, on the plus side for me, I don't have to talk all the time. So, with that, we are going to move on into our presentation. We were talking a little bit here before where you're coming from. I didn't have any idea where you are at in your approach to Hispanics, if you're here for ministry, if you're here because you have neighbors that are Hispanics or family members. Well, I found out that you're here for all those reasons and maybe more, okay? So we have a wide spectrum here of needs and wants and questions, and we have only an hour and a half, so we'll do our best to address all those needs and wants and to show you all the resources that we at Lutheran Hour Ministry produce to help you out on your outreach. Okay, so Lutheran Hour Ministries, I am assuming that most of you are familiar with who we are. We are a lay-led organization based in St. Louis, but we have ministry centers in, I don't know how many, 30-some, more than 35 countries in the world. Now, the ministry centers that are from Mexico down in South America, Central and South America, we identify them as CPTLN, which stands for Cristo para todas las naciones, Christ for all nations, okay? So that's why we have here CPTLN, Cristo para todas las naciones. That's how we know ourselves, Cristo para todas las naciones. So we are going to see some brief statistics of Hispanics for those of you that are not aware of where we stand with the numbers. And then we are going to talk about the values that we as Hispanics hold. And the reason why we're going to spend some time on talking about values is because the more we understand each other or another culture, the easier it will be to make connections, okay? To talk the same language, not Spanish necessarily, but the same love language, okay? So, I'm supposed to do this too, right? Okay, so we say that we have 62.5 million Hispanics in the United States. That's 20% of the population, folks, okay? So, to have a bird's eye view of what that means, 1 in 5 people in the US right now is Hispanic. 1 in 5. I don't see that in St. Louis. Many of you, Dave and Janet, don't see that in St. Louis. Many of you don't see that in your daily life, but that's a reality. Go to the border in Texas, go to San Diego, go to California, and you will see that, right? I'm sorry? Phoenix. Yeah, Phoenix, Albuquerque, New Mexico, okay? So 1 out of 5 people in the U.S. are Hispanics. 1 out of 4 elementary school children are Hispanics, okay? Hispanics are the 5th largest economy in the world. In the world, Hispanics in the U.S., the 5th largest economy in the world. And U.S. is the 2nd largest Spanish-speaking country in the world. So if Hispanics in the U.S. were a country of its own, it would be the 2nd largest Spanish-speaking country in the world. So huge numbers. Okay, values. Let's talk about values. And I'm changing that, and I'm not changing this, where I have my notes. We value family above everything else, okay? Family is a close-knit group, and as it says, they are the most important unit in society. So we will do anything for family, okay? And when we talk about family, we are not talking about just my husband and I and our kids. We are talking my parents, his parents, my uncles and aunts, and my cousins and his uncles and aunts and his cousins. Okay, so it's an extended family. And not only the family by blood, but also some friends, some neighbors. Marcos Kempf. How many of you know Marcos Kempf from the seminary? Well, when he comes to our home, he is the tío. He's the uncle for our kids and grandkids, okay? He's a tío. He's not just Marcos, he's tío, okay? When we go to some friend's house, they call us tía or tío to my husband. So that big group that we call family is the support group that help where we help each other out in times of crisis. Okay? That's why when we get here to the States, when immigrants come here, they look for family. They look for friends, they look for relatives, they look for neighbors or ex-neighbors, because that's the support group that they are going to be relying on. I didn't change? Oh, yes. Yeah. 41% of Hispanic homes are multi-generational. It's not only mom and dad and kids. It's also most probably grandma or grandma and grandpa. Okay? And maybe an uncle or an aunt that is single, okay? But 41%, almost half of them are multi-generational. We talk about that. Marriage. Marriage is the primary goal that we have. But marriage and family. The primary goal of marriage is to have children, but marriage and family is perceived as one. And you have to understand this to understand why we live the way we live when our kids grow up, okay? So when you ask me or a Hispanic about the marriage, I will talk about my husband and my kids and my grandkids, okay? So it's a whole unit. So in our countries, when kids grow up and they go to the university, they don't leave the house, Okay, we are not waiting for them to turn 18 so we can kick them out of the house. They stay there, and we are happy that they stay there. Okay, it's a totally different culture because it's like a whole unit that we have. The man is expected to be the provider. Is expected to be strong and fearless. That's where machismo comes in. But machismo well understood, not machismo that is abusive, not the man that is abusive. Okay, and the woman is expected to be sacrificial caregiver and is expected to be the one that raises the kids. Okay. Basically, the woman is the one behind what? is the one behind. He's laughing. He's smiling at me. He's looking at me and he's laughing. So I don't know. It's behind. Yes, exactly. There are no doubts about it. Okay. So, anyways. If you want, there are two concepts in there, machismo and Marianismo. Marianismo is the opposite side. It comes from the Virgin Mary, the term. If you want to get deep into that, just go to Wikipedia or any other, Google it. It's very interesting. It's very interesting how those two play out of each other, especially in the more... like in the Mexican culture. And I didn't say it wasn't, it's hot in here. It wasn't in the slide, but 60% of the Hispanics in this country come from Mexico. So it's a huge, huge percentage, okay? Family relations. We already said that family ties are very strong. We get together all the time to celebrate life. Birthdays, weddings, baptisms, first communions, graduations, any kind of celebration like that is a reason to get together. Okay, we instill in our children the importance of good honor, good manners, respects, and our elders are very respected. Okay. I have so many stories to tell from my own childhood, but I still remember my grandma and my grandpa were the grandma and the grandpa, it was a huge thing. I mean, very, very respectful of them. It's not like they were up there, but we played with them and everything, but there was a lot of respect for them, okay? And I think that in some sense, now that we have our children and our own grandchildren, it is the same. Somebody was saying yesterday, we were at a family house last night for dinner with a group of volunteers that are working in a project, my husband is. And we prayed before dinner, and we said a couple different prayers that people had, and then they asked us to say our prayer in Spanish. Okay? So after that, Hector said that when we get together with our children and grandchildren, we have 8 grandchildren, by the way, and 1 great-grandchild. Yeah, we are old. We don't look, but we are old. But when we get together, all together, we start with the youngest one. Not the youngest one because he's 4 and he doesn't know it yet, but one of the next ones, a 10-year-old, and he says the prayer that they are used to say in his house. Then the next one says the prayer they are used to say in his house. And then the next one says the prayer they are used to say in his house. And then they always want to finish, all in English, okay? And they always want to finish with the one that we say in Spanish. And they all know it, okay? And somebody mentioned last night, that's kind of the factor that unites them all, That's what puts you all together, So that's what happens there. Community relations. Latinos enjoy serving in any capacity, not for ministry. Have them serve. Make them useful. Help them see that they have a place where you are. If it is a church, help them see that you need them, that they are part of it. And one way that they can do that is by serving, okay? They will work hard to help the needs of the community, again, because community is so important for us. So think community programs, and we will expand on this later, but think community programs. What can your church do to implement some kind of community program that can affect the community at itself, okay? Belonging to a group is a high priority for Hispanics. So for ministry, for church, think, we like logos, because that tells me that I belong to something, okay? So if you give me a cup, a baseball cap, or a t-shirt that has a logo from something that I am doing, I will be very happy to wear it, okay? So those are just little tips that can help you in your outreach. Religion. You know that most Hispanics identify with Catholicism, okay? But there is a big but in there. Catholicism is just a way of living for them, but there is no real biblical knowledge, okay? Just a very little example. We were somewhere at home doing something with celebrating a birthday. And I was sitting with our two grandsons. One is 9, the other one is 10. The 9-year-old goes to a Lutheran school. The 10-year-old goes to a Catholic school. Okay? So the 9-year-old, for the next day, his homework was to be able to say by heart however many books of the Bible. Okay? So he was repeating them. He was showing off. Because he was showing off, Marcos, okay? And then he got stuck. And then so he asks Hunter, the one that goes to the Catholic school, he says, what comes after whatever? Do you know the books of the Bible? No, he says. You don't have to learn the books of the Bible by heart? No. Okay, so Hunter acolytes at his Catholic church, okay? And he's very proud of what he does, okay? Marcos reads every so often in his Lutheran church. But Hunter hasn't opened a Bible. At school, they don't teach Bible. Okay, no, and it's a very good Catholic school. It's a very good Catholic school, okay? So, you see, that's what unfortunately most Catholics learn. It's rituals, it's going through the motions, it's going to church for baptism, for wedding, for funerals, or when we are sick, when they are sick. It's not life. So I've always been saying in my work at LHM that we need to teach Hispanics that God has something to say to everything that we go through in life, that he can walk, he wants to walk with us through whatever we go in life, that God is not a God of a baptism, not the God of a wedding, not the God of a funeral. God is a God of life, of every 24/7, 365 days a year God, okay? And I forgot to say, you can interrupt me anytime if something comes to your mind and you have a question or want to add something, okay? Please do. So, this is the new trend. When they are in their countries, or they are coming here, the older generations, they are religious, 67% say yes, they worship regularly, 48% say yes, they pray daily, 69%, and they think that religion is a pillar of society, 56% say yes. But as they get here to the U.S., and either the newborns or the ones that are brought here younger, and they get into this American way of living and into our society that is more secularized by the minute, it's getting more secularized. The numbers go the no's go up. So we are finding that the research shows that the younger generations are not as religious, don't think that religion should be a pillar of society. Just is equating more or less with American society. Okay, it's becoming more and more like American society. So they are losing the values that we think we assign to the Hispanic culture. And this is you. So I've stopped here, and now this is Chad.
Question about, you talk about the decline in the values of what you say is Hispanic culture. Do you think that has anything to do with immigrant generation? Like, a lot of times we see by third or fourth generation American, you don't have maybe the values that first or second generation would.
Yes.
So it's more
Yes.
influx.
Yes, and remember that when you immigrate to another country, you are losing your support group that you were used to, your environment. You're losing everything. Okay, so you bring your values with you, like we did when we immigrated from Argentina here. But then, unless you find the same kind of strong support group here with the same values, it's very hard to keep them. And maybe you can keep them, but what about? Maybe your kids can, but then when you get to your grandkids, it's the same as the language. Our kids were old enough to be bilingual, to speak Spanish very well, so they still speak Spanish very well. They are adults, but their kids don't. Right. The same happens with values. As you progress in generations, their values go dwindling down, unfortunately. Yeah, thank you for that question.
I would add it's not completely hopeless, though.
No,
right.
No.
There are a number of research studies that show that second and third generations, especially in our time where...
You're supposed to use this.
Yeah, where culturally in the North American audience, all of us are aware of sort of the hyper attention to identity questions, right? Not so much, maybe ethnic, but sometimes, but political, Democrat, Republican, right, gender and sexual minority questions, many others like that, right? We're doubling down on these identity things. That actually opens a space for second and third generation immigrants to say, wait, part of my identity is I have this heritage, this past, and they're returning. Yeah, and some of them are doing that in the communities that still have the best roots, their churches. So that's something that we have learned about Hispanics. So one of the things that I just wanted to share, as I've kind of engaged with Hispanics as an outsider. I've had to learn how to do this over the last 4 years, and I've had 2 really brilliant teachers to learn from. Right? Yes, I might be the boss, but I'm just trying to make a way to say, how can this ministry flourish? Because one of my goals at Lutheran Hour, and we're making it a collective goal, is to say, how can we as Lutheran Hour, an institution of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, help to normalize the presence of and the inclusion of Hispanics among us? They're not a them, right? And so how do we do that? Through our power as an institution to normalize their presence, their voice, their concerns, and so on. And so that's what we're aiming for. Right? And I've been learning, how do we interact and how do we engage? Here are a bunch of God-given skills on the left side, right? We all know how to be tactful on some level, humorous, sensitive, patient, warm, and winsome. And they play themselves out concretely on the left side, right? We can carefully listen, which is a real challenge in American culture across the board right now. But as we listen to others, the immediate effect is you humanize them. They're immediately no longer an other, a them. They are my friend. They have a name. They have a story. They have experiences that matter, right? And perhaps then they can reciprocate. If we get to know about them, they ask, well, tell me about you. And it's a really interesting dynamic that we could do a little more emphasis on in our culture. One of the things that I love from this journalist, Monica Guzman, says whoever is underrepresented in your life is overrepresented in your imagination. And as divided and polarized as we are, And I was hearing a story from a gentleman earlier saying, some people in his congregation, as they're attempting to reach out to Hispanics, are starting to ask questions so as to sort of distance themselves from the Hispanic ministry. Are they legal? Right? Are they here legally? As if in the world of the kingdom, that's really a question, right? And that's exactly what he was saying. His motivation is, well, it doesn't matter if they're here legally. Is the gospel for everybody? Yes, indeed it is, right? So one of our troubling habits, I would say, as we're divided in our culture, is that we overrepresent these others in our imagination. And it can go good or bad. My mom used to love Princess Diana. Right? She did not know Princess Diana. Many of us did not know Princess Diana, right? She was a human with, frailties, fickleness, foibles, sinfulness, in all the same way that all of us share. But because she was a princess, right, her view, and many people's view of her, is just highly romanticized, very positive, right? So it can be very beneficial. We can see people maybe in an overly good way, but it also works out maybe more so in our time as an overly negative attribute, right? It's an easy way for us to create distance, objectify or treat others in an abstract way, right? And begin to think of all the reasons we shouldn't connect and talk to each other, right? But as we have them represented in our life, we start to see them for who they really are in that humanizing way that I talked about in terms of listening. So I think she just captures it really well in these words. So I wanted to give that to you. A little bit of theological background for me and for our movement. What we're trying to do at Lutheran Hour is just to see other people through the lens of Jesus, right? And that's everybody, right? Whether it's your friends who are struggling through whatever you might be unaware of, and they come to you and say, I've got this real problem in my life, their deep, dark secret, and they really want to know, are you still going to love them if you know this about them, right? This is something that happens in the church. But also, these outsider populations, right? There are lots of them. And Paul talks about this significantly in Colossians, right? Be mindful of how you engage with outsiders. Use the time wisely, that your words are going to be filled with saltiness, so that you know how to speak to them in the right moments where you might actually introduce them to Jesus. Right? This is motivating everything that we're doing at Lutheran Hour, that passage from Colossians. And so we're trying to think, look at others through the lens of Jesus. How do we do that? Well, I think one of the ways is, how do we transcend in our own language all of these boundaries that we arbitrarily create, right? By dividing ourselves according to identity categories, right? I'm an Anglo. There's Hispanics in the room, right? And that divides us in some way. But what unites us, right? What goes beyond that category and all other categories that we could place ourselves in, Republican or Democrat, gender or sexual majority versus minority person, right? How do we overcome that? I think the most basic way is think about the fact that all of us are made in God's image. Right? It is a defining characteristic of every single living human being. Right? And if we can start seeing with that lens, that's helpful. What do we know about God? He's a God of conversation and community. Right? Well, we just heard quite a bit about community. God wants to talk to us, and He does. Right? He says, let us make man in our own image. It's not good for humans to be alone. And this is our lens for seeing everybody else. Right? God wants to bring people together, and not just together in the here and now, but together in the eternal future of the redeemed heavens and earth, right? The kingdom that Jesus will rule and reign from on the throne. And we all share this image, and so instead of differences, right, Hispanic versus Anglo, we can see sameness first. We can prioritize it. We can make it central, right? And this helps. From a theological perspective, we would call this our anthropology. It's just simply talking about what does it mean to be human. And if we answer that question in the most basic way, we're created in God's image, and this is what it means. We're people of conversation. We're people of community. Well, then we can engage with everybody. Right? Again, an identity category that goes above and beyond all the others, and it can be a starting point for our policies and discussions. In all of our congregations, our ministries, right? Or if we're serving over and leading other ministries and influencing them that way, we can kind of take this message there to help them see a different way of engaging with other people. And that's what I've learned. And I will tell you, I see Hispanics living this out better than Anglos. And I've experienced it. So just this past August, the Hispanic National Convention met, the 7th meeting of this group of people in the LCMS. And I was so deeply moved by their hospitality for me. When the LCMS convention comes up later this summer, I don't know if they're going to have anything like a Spanish language track. I don't know if they're going to have audio translators for those who can't track with the English well, but who are trained, valid, strong, ministering theologians and servants of the church among us. And there are a bunch of them in our church body. But what happened at the Hispanic National Convention was they created an English language track for someone like me who doesn't speak Spanish very well at all, right? Who gave me audio to hear the translation, who did everything they could in terms of the messaging of the whole convention to say, we are one. I was moved to tears more than once by experiencing the welcome from them that they don't often receive from us. It was just, I don't even know what word to say to describe it fully. It was so moving. And I just want to encourage that for them and encourage the larger church to adopt the same model. They offer us something that maybe us Anglos don't do so well. So that's me. Thank you.
That was a reason why I wanted him to talk to you. I hope you agree with me, right? Okay, so now it's your turn, Hector.
It's funny.
Do I do something with this?
Just
No,
or put it in your pocket.
Hi. My wife introduced her boss as Anglo, and she introduced herself as Latino, Hispanic. Did she say something about me? I'm exactly that, in the middle. I'm exactly that. I'm an Anglo who was born in a German family, first services in German, and in a Latin American country. So I am both, and this is one of the terrific privileges that God gave me, that I can connect with not only the language, but with the humor and with culture, with understanding. I can be on time and I can be late. It is just magnificent. Seriously. Change whatever. No, not too. No. Okay, some challenges and rewards. So we need to back up about 30 years. When I arrived, because CPH called me to be a worker with them, and when I tell people that I work for CPH, they said, "Oh, you came here to translate. Wonderful." And I just bite my tongue, not to say anything, because I had another idea, an idea that an Anglo, a professor from the seminary for the Center of Hispanic Studies, put into me, and it was to help me to develop. He pushed me to develop literature in Spanish. Like Dr. Chad mentioned, we have many people that are in high quality in academic level that are Hispanics in our institutions. Now, our challenges. I myself, my challenge. I grew up as a pastor in a pastoral house. My dad was a pastor. I became a pastor. I know Lutheran theology. I know Lutheran service. I know everything everything. So when I was asked to teach about practical theology for the Hispanic students, I prepared everything I learned at the seminary, and somebody saw the syllabus and said, "What?" So they prepared it to me, and I was so grateful, because the people that are coming here and are studying here, and you know that, Richard, that you have students too, they have no idea. The first thing is, I was formed to teach and preach and do baptisms in a formal congregation. We here teach so they can go and open a church. They are ordained or not ordained, they are legal, and they go and start a church. And that's a dynamic that we have that I needed to learn. That was my first challenge, to leave my cultural Lutheran understanding, European understanding of Christ and worship service and culture, to leave it aside and start learning to listen. How they are. That's why I like it. I like what you did, to start knowing their stories, and that is so helpful. So 2 years ago I had 21 students. I also teach for the Center of Hispanic Studies, which belongs to the seminary in St. Louis. I had 21 students. I needed to teach the history of the church, not the history of the church, Lutheran Reformation theology. And from the 21, one was raised in a Lutheran home. The other 20 were baptized Catholic, but they all went through Pentecostalism and evangelicalism and here and there until I don't know, by the grace of God, they found Christ and the Lutheran theology. They were so happy with that they don't want to leave. Now they want to move the Anglo congregation to be like them. So those are the challenges that I had to face. The rewards was already mentioned. I think we need to learn to think differently in our motives, our goals, why we want to reach them. There was a time that Anglo churches wanted to reach Hispanics so they can bring more money into the church because they couldn't afford the heating or the air conditioning. We remember that. And so sick churches cannot give birth to a healthy child. So only healthy churches, and I'm absolutely sure you belong to a healthy church because you are here. And you know that already. So when we want to share Christ, the goal is to equip them to become workers, and you don't have to push them too much. You just open the door; they will come in right away. And a little late, somebody came in. He sits in the back, which is my perfect example. Yeah, you. Who came from a different country in South America, not even Spanish country from South America, but he speaks good Spanish, and then he went through some different denominations, and I learned about that yesterday. And then he found a Lutheran pastor, a Hispanic from Mexico, who put him to work. He's one of the students now, and that I want you to keep that in mind, because the gifts that we have with Hispanics is just tremendous. So I don't know if you know, but we have a Lutheran dogmatic written in Spanish by Hispanic theologians. It's not quite complete, not quite the structure that we have, the European dogmatics. Well, that's the idea, not to have the same structure. And it's sold by CPH, and it's sold to different churches. We have several PhDs in our institutions that came from Latin America that were given the opportunity to study. So think long term, and the reward is just tremendous. So, okay. So I also teach pastoral care or pastoral counseling, and this is one of my favorite. I have different scriptures on the iceberg, but this is my favorite. This part here is what we know, the language and the culture that is very on the surface. I know your face, I know how you react and all that, but the part that we don't know, it's hidden. And in that hidden part, the fears, the frustrations, the entire story is there. They crossed the border at one point, or the border crossed them. Many come pregnant from the border because they had to pay a price to get in. Children that left everybody and they are by themselves. That big thing there is so strong, and we need to be smart. You're going to take a picture of that, right? You need to be smart to open up, to talk about your own struggles. Tell them your own stories, your own life story, the good and the bad, and your spirituality, and how you overcome some things, so they can start opening up in whatever language they will use. Don't freak out. They will say things like, "Oh, dear Lord, yeah, we as pastors have gone through so much," but that once they open up from there, some things that they don't even remember, they don't know, but sometimes something triggers one of those things, and that's a connection. That is a real connection that will bring them to church and get them ready to serve his own church eventually when they move. I guess that's it, huh? Did I do well?
Yes. So, for those of you that came a little later, I see you taking pictures. There was a sign-up sheet going around. If you would like, I can send you this presentation, so this PowerPoint. So just put your name and an email address that I can read, and you will be getting this, okay? So you don't need, you're welcome to take pictures, but you can get it also the other way. So now we are moving this. I'm working here at two hands. Let's talk about cultural types here. This is an amazing thing that I discovered not too long ago. This is the cultural types by Richard Lewis, a Brit that has done lots of studies on people. And he has been able to categorize people by their behaviors. So we have he put people in three categories. The blues are the linear actives, the reds on the top are the multi-actives, and the yellows are the reactives. And then he put all the different countries or ethnicities in there. So the linear actives are the Anglos, all the English-speaking people in the world, and the Anglo-Saxon and the Scandinavian countries, okay? Then we go up and we get to the reds. That's where all the Latin countries or Hispanics come, yeah, the reds. And then we go down and we get to the yellows, and that's where the Asian countries, most of them are. This is very interesting because we will show us, and we will go a little bit more into detail. If you see the blue, so you are cool. This is generalization, okay? Are cool, Anglos in general, cool, factual, decisive, and you want to plan. You like to plan and have a plan and steps to follow to get to an end, okay? We, on the other hand, are warm, emotional, loquacious, and impulsive. Don't talk to me about a 10-step plan, okay? Tell me what I need to get and I will decide how I will get there and when we will get there. So, okay. So these are some of the things that differentiate us, and this is good to understand how Hispanics are coming from and how we can get, like Chad was saying, how can we get closer to each other, understanding. If you are patient, I am impatient, okay? If you are quiet, I'm talkative. If you are impassive, I am emotional. If you mind your own business, I am nosy, okay? If you're reserved, I'm sociable. You are on time, that's my husband. And I learned to be on time because I've been married to him for 45 years. But otherwise, I tend to be late. Okay? Yes, you too? What's wrong with you, Janelle?
I should be Hispanic, yes.
She's got 46 years, she still hasn't learned.
You are brief on the telephone. We could talk for hours. You rarely interrupt. We interrupt all the time. Okay? You limited body language. We are like, you know, we go everywhere. So you know that you have seen that probably in your interactions with other people. Yeah, Anglos like to plan. You have a question.
Yeah, I'm just curious if there's been any thought or research done to how that might shift if you grew up in a more multi-ethnic community.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at this, I'm like, I'm from New York, and so like I'm impatient, I'm talkative, I'm emotional,
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I have been married to an Anglo-Saxon there, so I am always on time. And if you are 5 minutes late, I am impatient with you because you should have been on time.
Right.
And I am Hispanic, okay? So, yes, of course. Yes, Richard.
And the other thing to remember is that they're talking in generalities
Yes.
here about sociology, groups of people.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
There's always individuals who are different.
Sure.
Absolutely. There are many things that would influence each person, you know, for one side or the other.
I'm just curious how much multicultural communities change those realities. So, yeah. Thank you.
You know, you plan all the steps, we just make outlines, you know. You want to have all the details, all the ducks in a row? No, why? You know? Well, all those things. One is interesting there, right in the middle. You always will use official channels. We use connections. Okay? And that may be viewed not in the best light for the Anglos. We just use our connections. If you need something done, you're going to go through the official channels. We are going to say, okay, who do you know that can help me with this? That doesn't mean that I'm going to bribe somebody to do it, but if I know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody, we're going to go that route instead of going the official route. Okay? And we're going to move faster here because so we can have time for questions. About your Hispanic neighbors, extremely warm-hearted and hospitable, ready to invite you into their homes. You're shaking your head, right? They're ready to invite you into their homes. I mean, I don't think that there is anything more, I don't know what word to use here, but any Hispanic woman, if you tell to any Hispanic woman, I would like to come to your house for lunch or for dinner, they will be thrilled to cook for you. They will be absolutely thrilled to be able to host you, to cook for you. Okay, very. Yeah, you show it. you have experienced that. Okay. We talk about strong family ties. We keep eye contact. Men hug each other. We don't do that in this culture, but
Women hug each other.
yes, women and men too. If you go to one of our countries, you will see that men are walking, hugging each other, and they kiss each other when they see each other, so yeah, different things. All things that we need to kind of remember when we are dealing with another culture, so we don't get offended or we don't offend them. So now, how do we engage them? And let's go through this first, and then we'll talk more practical stuff. First, we don't lose sight of our goal, which is make disciples of all nations. And we remember that we are not doing this alone, right? I am with you always, says Jesus to us. We replace fear with facts. And what do I mean by this? 91% of US-born Latinos and 37% of foreign-born Latinos speak English proficiently. We think that they cannot speak English. Well, this is certainly not something different. 45.5 million out of 62.5 million can speak English. So we cannot say, no, I am not going to talk to them because they don't understand me, okay? Because they don't know the language. And another way to replace fear with fact, according to the American Association of Psychology, the journal, communication is not what we say, but the way we speak with our voice, our eyes, our face, and our body. And if you see that, hold on a second, let me get to my actual numbers. It's going to be better. I should have done this before. Okay. 55% of our communication is done through our body language, 38% is through our tone of voice, and only 7% through our words. So that's why in my presentation I said it's all about loving your neighbor as ourselves, okay? Because we can communicate with anybody through our actions, through the way we engage with them, even if we cannot say the words that we want to say in the language that they will understand. They can see it. You can see when somebody is genuinely engaged with you, is genuinely loving you. You can see the acts of love of the other person, right? And then we listen. We talked about this briefly today. We need to listen to them. What are their needs? What are their expectations? What are their fears, their dreams? What can they bring to the table? What gifts they have? What ideas they have? If we want to make an impact in their lives, in their families, in their communities, well, what do they need? And we are guilty. I am guilty of this. Sometimes we think that we know what the other needs. Like preparing for this presentation, I did my best, but did I know what you guys needed while you were coming to this presentation? Well, I kind of thought about it, but I didn't know exactly what all of you were needing for this. So let's not make the mistake of thinking that we know what everybody else needs or what the other person needs. Just ask, get into their lives and ask and see what we can do to help them out. And then we try to develop a culture of cooperation, social concern, respect, and care to serve the common good, okay? We are going to talk now about the resources that we offer, and then we will have time for an exchange of a Q&A, okay? So, in Spanish, we have two big websites. One is paraelcamino.com, for the journey, translates. And all the resources that we have there are geared towards a more Christian or churchgoer audience, okay? And you know that guy. There we have weekly sermons with study notes. So if any of you has a group that is meeting regularly and you want to present the Word of God to them, but you cannot preach in Spanish, you can use the audios or the text of these sermons and just print out the text or run the audios and they can listen to a sermon, okay? Doctrinally reviewed, so it's okay to use it, okay? And for free. Everything is for free. Everything that we are going to talk about here is for free. And there are study notes for each sermon, and the sermon follows the lessons of each Sunday, okay? And with study notes. So the notes is a PDF that you can download for free too, and that's more geared towards a small Bible study group, okay? So if you have a group that meets regularly, weekly or whatever, and you don't know what to do, well, print those notes, and you will have everything in there with reflection questions, with the text, with exegesis of the text, and questions for the group, okay? You have daily devotionals, audio, and also to read. You have Bible studies, you have booklets. I was talking today to you. We have booklets. If you're not aware of this, there are booklets that we touch on different topics of daily life, like depression or guilt or forgiveness and so forth from a Christian perspective. That is a great ministry to have if you can touch somebody's life, but you have only a couple minutes, or somebody that is passing by, like you were talking about your food pantry today, and you have only 3 minutes with each one, right, with each person. So I said, well, we have this booklet ministry here that you can just grab a booklet and give it to, a different booklet each time to each person. Okay. And then we also have another website, Sentido Latino, with Latin sense means that. Sentido Latino, which has resources for a not so Christian or not church audience. So we have a podcast, we have brief reflections, and we have other resources in there. Everything, okay, no, let me not go ahead of myself. That's the podcast. Those are the hosts, Reverend Luciano Vega Ayala and Deaconess Noemi Guerra, his daughter, from Texas both. And then we have also vivenciar.net. That's a newer website that is in all Central and Latin America. So this is a website where imagine that I am depressed or I'm going through a crisis, a family crisis, and I don't know where to go for help. And I am Googling there, and Vivenciar comes up. Well, Vivenciar offers the possibility of chatting. I can type and say, I need help because this and this happened to me and I don't know what to do. Immediately we have a system where a volunteer from anywhere in the US or Central or South America, the first person that sees that somebody is online will grab that interaction and immediately respond to that person. And keep talking to that person until everything is calmed down, and with the final goal of course, the ultimate goal is to connect them to a Christian community. But if we don't get to that, if we can help one person to get out of a crisis with our resources or just talking to them, that's enough too. Okay.
What does that mean?
Vivenciar, that's a very hard word to translate because it came from Brazil. So it's something like living. Vivir means to live. So vivenciar is to experience life. That's a very loose translation.
Real life.
Yeah, it's very hard to translate it to English. It's like Okay. And then, the Hispanics are always connected. Smartphones are our best friends. So we also created an app, the CPTLN app, that anybody can download for free. And everything that we have on the websites is also here. And the good thing is that, you can have it on your phone. I have it on my phone here. You have all the resources there, and everything can be shared through the app with any of the apps that you already have on your phone. If you have WhatsApp, if you have Messenger, if you have whatever it is that you have, you can share with your family and friends. So that's something that they are using very much. Those are some screenshots of the app. Okay, so all that is contained in here, and you can pass. There are some in that also there, but these are what we call promo wallets. Is Share Christ. So here you will get. These are all the promo cards with all the things that all the resources that we have, and these are prayer cards. They just have they say God loves you, and in the back is a benediction. I personally use this like when I check out of the hotel, which today I forgot. I leave this with a tip for the maid because it's just a nice touch. You can give that to anybody, but that's an easy way to remember what we have and to use what we have. Okay, so now it's up to you. Questions. What do you want to know? What do I do? What didn't I answer? What do you need to know to help you out? Yes, Janet.
Just the last one, the app, the CPTLN, is that you can share the content of what's on
Yes.
the app, or can I actually share that app somehow?
No, you can share content. Yeah, and then you can tell them go to your
Great. And then
Play Store or Apple Store or whatever and download the app. Yeah. Yes.
So the second website you showed us, you said is mainly for a non-Christian audience. Could you just explain the
Yes.
context that I shared in?
Yes. So the podcast is very lively. What we do is just deal with regular topics like family issues or marriage couples issues or how to raise kids or deal with this or with that in a very non-threatening, very entertaining way, but always with a very subtle Christian perspective. I mean, we don't throw the Bible in your face.
Right, so the target audience is like someone I'm talking to who's not interested in religion or coming to church or anything. And I said, I heard about this cool podcast. You should probably check it out.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I have another question.
Okay.
So I'm in Monterey, California.
Okay.
High Hispanic and Italian population. So it's a lot of Catholics.
Yes.
So could you speak into that? I'm sorry if you already did. I was late. But
A lot of what?
how do you minister?
because they say
Yes.
I'm Catholic.
Culturally.
Just
a lot
And
of
then-
folks
and
are
then they
either
cut you
Catholic
off.
Or just non-religious.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
do you have any, so what I'm trying to coach my church on is ministry throughout the week. So yeah, they go to Catholic church on Sunday, that's part of their identity, that's their family thing. But we want to have a place where they learn
Yeah.
how to pray and learn how to read the Bible.
Yes, exactly.
Because they're
Yes.
missing that, and
Yes,
we can do
yes,
that
yes.
during the week.
You know what I've seen? I don't know if they need an ESL. They probably don't need an ESL classes at this point, if they are there. But any activity that you can offer during the week that involves the whole family will be always greatly appreciated. And especially if you are doing something for the kids.
Okay.
Okay? And if you bring the kids, the whole family will come, even grandma. Okay? So I don't know what the needs are in that community, but they may need help with homework. I don't know. Or they may need to have a safe place where they can go and do some sports one night a week, or some games, whatever. But always have activities for the whole family group. They don't have to be together, but if you're offering something for kids, offer something for the adults at the same time, and vice versa. If you offer something for adults, offer something for kids. Don't separate them because they are not going to leave the kids at home to go to church. Okay? But the first thing, find out what their needs are in the community that the Catholic Church is not supplying, and then see how you can fulfill those needs. Probably would be through the kids. That's my guess, but maybe not. Maybe the women need something, you know. And the fact that they tell you that they are Catholic, that doesn't mean that they are practicing
Yeah,
Catholic.
it's like saying you're Jewish. when
But
you're
it's
Jewish.
family,
Yeah.
like it's
Yes.
it's because
Yes.
people won't come into our church because they don't want to offend their mom or their family
Right,
treats.
right. So then you have to find non-threatening ways to get them together, maybe in a house. maybe you can go to a house and just talk, have not a Bible study, but a Bible study underneath the Bible. Something that, how to raise your kids. Something like that. And you can bring in there that, God has something to say about how to raise your kids too. Yes, Rich.
Discovery, right?
Huh?
We've heard so many times about people discovering something that they never learned from Catholicism, right? But they discover the Bible, and this is one of the major motives of Beatriz's work. She loves the Word of God and wants to help people encounter it, and any method that helps them encounter it, they just, it's like a light bulb comes on. I never knew this. And as soon as that discovery happens, then God takes over.
Yeah, and the other thing is when you have a holiday coming up, they will do anything for their kids. So if you are putting out a program, I remember me going to the Christmas program. If they put out a program, invite their kids, invite their neighborhoods. If the kids go, again, the whole family is going to go, okay? But maybe that would be a way in which they won't feel so threatened because you are offering something and it's specifically for the kids, okay? So, sorry, you had...
One of the things we've had great success with is we don't have a lot of big meeting halls where we live. We give anyone who wants it for 16-year-olds or females, I forgot the name. Say it again?
Quinceañera.
Yeah, quinceañera. We offer the church for free.
Yep.
The hall.
Yep.
And that brings in everybody.
Yeah.
That's
So,
a great idea.
yeah, that's another one. That's a quinceañera is a huge thing within especially the Mexican community. So, and that's, I imagine, what you have the most there. So that's a huge thing. Ricardo, sorry, yes.
You were asking about trying to teach them to pray and to read the Bible and things. And some of the booklets that they have will be helpful as introductions that are not threatening. If you're going to use that as maybe your basis for a series of 3 to 5 weekly sessions or something like that, we're going to be talking about how to raise your kids and going through this booklet, and here's the booklet, and we'll get together each week. You will want to add certain things to it. Some of the booklets are not quite as overtly law and gospel as you might want to add a little bit of something there when you have them there, right there. But it's a non-threatening way. In Venezuela, we had churches that were started when those booklets are offered on the radio for free. And we would get people going into a city that we had no contacts except for Christ for All the Nations contacts. And they would go to different places and invite them to come to a central location where they would go ahead and talk about some of those issues.
Yeah.
And before too very long, they had people saying, hey, we're getting together every week and talking about the Bible and talking about our life. Why couldn't we have a worship service?
Yeah. That's a great you reminder me, because workshops offer free workshops. They always want to better themselves, and especially if they are learning how to be better parents, how to do better for their children. That's a great idea. See.
I can talk from here now.
Yeah.
I found your question a very scary question to me, because I don't want to do proselytism. I don't want to go and steal believers, whatever that means, from other churches. But I still have that concern, because it's not only Catholicism, it's all the Pentecostals, everybody else who doesn't understand the gospel the way I understand. The way the Bible teaches.
Yeah.
Okay?
No,
So,
do you want me to elaborate?
no.
Okay.
No.
Because I understand.
I will choose.
That's not what I'm trying to do.
I will choose to help them share their story with me, and that's only going to happen if I have a personal relationship with someone.
Yeah.
Friendship, you have relations, so you workshops, everything else. You go to a funeral. You just show up. If there is, it's in the neighborhood, whatever. So and then if they'll discover that, and then you can build from there.
Thank you. Yes. Oh.
Just related to that, what you just said, when we did this stuff in Venezuela with the booklets, we deliberately did not go for people who were already members of churches and active.
Sure.
Right.
And
Yeah, our goal
Sure.
is in numbers and pews. I want people to grow in faith and know how to pray and know how to read the word, and they're not getting that in their church.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Sorry.
No, that's okay. So I guess one of the things, I am new to Tempe, Arizona. I started there full-time February 1st.
Oh.
And
Okay.
one of the things that we have seen...
February 1st now?
Yeah, it's like
Okay.
Tempe right there.
Yeah, I'm from,
Beautiful Savior.
okay.
Okay. And you know, the demographics of Tempe, 25% of the community identifies as Latino in some way. Those in our congregation who are Latino are more third, fourth generation.
Yeah.
And so it's more of a cultural piece. But, you know, we work really great with our schools. And in some of the conversations we've had, the schools are saying, we don't know how to help the parents. You know, and so I'm a little afraid because a sentence came out of your mouth, and I'm like, well, darn, that was my thought. And you're like, I don't know if ESL would help. And I'm like, well, shoot, now what? You know, like,
No.
so where
In our context, it's
Oh.
probably
Yeah. No. ESL will be a great starting
okay.
point, if that's a need.
if that's a need,
If
right?
that is
I
a
just-
need. And
know,
and more still, if you can hold, if there is a need for
Right.
ESL, and you can do ESL at your church at the same time that you offer the ESL for the parents, offer help with homework for the kids.
Yeah.
Or whatever activity for the kids, okay? And if you can offer also a brief lunch or dinner
Yeah.
with that,
So-
oh my gosh, that will be, okay?
The homework, help, and dinner is the easy part. You know, it's finding that.
If
person
you're
who has
filling
the
out
skill set.
a need,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I guess that would be a question too, is if I don't have that skill set within my congregation, are there places in a community where I can find someone?
That's something I forgot to say because I
Yeah.
didn't read my notes. But the first thing that you need to do if you're starting a ministry or wanting to start a ministry, look at your community. What
Yeah.
resources are already there in
Yeah,
your
yeah.
community? Because there are. I can guarantee you that there are. So don't try to reinvent the wheel. Just look for what is there and use that.
Yeah.
Yes,
I don't know if this fits in with anything, because
it's okay.
we're from here.
Okay.
This is not my church, it's sort of my second church, but Abiding Savior. But 5 years ago, my husband and I downsized to a primarily Hispanic neighborhood.
Okay.
Just 2 miles from here. And God said, I want you there. We said, okay. My daughter-in-law, our daughter-in-law is from Cuernavaca in Mexico.
Okay.
So I'm familiar with, I speak a poquito.
Okay.
But, so, this neighborhood is primarily Hispanic. We have become very good friends with both families on either side. They've kind of adopted us as grandparents, which is wonderful, you know, we love it. When we first moved in there 5 years ago, I said, I need to know my neighbors, and so Kurt and I created a flyer. I said, I'm gonna have a cookie exchange, Christmas cookie exchange with the neighborhood. I had like 8 or 10 women came from
Aw.
the neighborhood, and they continue to come, and we don't keep in constant connection, but we are connected.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I came to this class and some other ones, I want to expand that, not to our church necessarily, because
Yeah.
we're farther away,
Mhm.
and it's just not, I
Yeah.
don't feel
Yeah.
that's,
It's not the right, yeah.
but we want to minister to these people because we love them, they're our neighbors, and we've grown to love them. One of the young men has even taken on my husband as a substitute substitute father. And he's starting to say, I think maybe I'm going to be a Christian. We're going, yes, maybe you are.
Wow.
You know, so I want to make it go further. It's not because I don't want them to get into a church. I want them to know
Yeah.
Christ.
And they don't need to get into a church to
Yeah.
know Christ.
I-
Absolutely. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yes.
I want to know, what I'm trying to figure out is where next? How does God want to use us to really, really say, this is who I am to them? They know us where we are, but they don't know. So that's.
Okay. Okay.
Cookie exchange works, it's wonderful. Food, yeah, yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
I was going to share something that happened in our congregation because we started just a few people in Dallas. And the first thing that I tried to do was identify somebody who is Hispanic, because I'm from Brazil. So my first language is Portuguese. I speak Spanish, but there's a little barrier. And the first thing that I looked for was someone who could take a lead and spend a lot of time eating with him. There's one of the big liturgy in the Hispanic community is eat at the table. That's where everything happens.
Yeah.
And the other thing, there's a place in Texas called Glen Rose, and they have the Passion of Christ in April. We went the first year, the Sunday before Easter. And through the ritual, they really enjoy seeing a piece, music, and things like that. And everybody in our group, in our congregation, came from a Catholic background, culturally Catholic. And it was really nice because when we went for Easter service, it was even more powerful because they already connected with the Word, and plus the trip and the experience. The other thing that I learned is that the men, they don't come at first. It's mostly the woman.
Yeah.
And so you want to have a woman, and it's hard for me to be in connection with the woman's if the husband doesn't know me. And so I found out that we had a really good need for LWML in Spanish. And there is a lady who is doing the study every other Saturday, and that's helping us a lot. And it takes time because the hardest is trust.
Yeah.
Right, the trust.
Yeah.
But that helped us.
Thank you. Thank you.
One other point, if you are going to have a cookie exchange at 1 o'clock, don't expect them to be there at 1 o'clock.
No. No. If you go, like when we were still living in Argentina, if you were invited to a wedding and it said, because they are late, at 9 o'clock at night, the bride wouldn't come until 10, 10:30. Oh, yeah. That's normal.
We laugh about it now. Mexican time.
Yeah.
Because they expect everybody.
That's the way it's, yeah. Very flexible with the time.
If you want 10, put 9.
Yes, yes. Yes.
How helpful or even relevant might it be for more of us that are Anglos to learn Spanish to be able to talk to folks, not depending on them knowing English?
If I am going to be honest with you, I don't think it's worth it. I mean, you have to, it's okay to try to make the effort, but to communicate, there are some of you that you know some Spanish, so you do a little. So you will be able to learn a little, but to the point where you will be able,
But the majority of the Hispanics can understand.
Yes. But, like we saw in the presentation, the great majority will be able to understand your English. Okay? The great majority. And if you're trying to communicate something and you cannot get through, get a kid. Get a kid. And you talk to him or to her and you ask them to translate.
But I'm thinking more from the aspect that you're showing that you
Oh yes. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You just had an experience, Jeanette.
Yeah,
if you want to
I
share.
was going to explain. So, realtor, not so active right now, but and so working with Hispanic clients, and I speak not even poquito in terms of Spanish, right? But I had it in 5th and 6th grade, so it's like, oh man, that's been forever ago, and so I just was very upfront with them. Okay, I don't speak Spanish. And of course she said, well, you know, my 8-year-old is here, and so they'll translate for us, no big deal. Well, that was great. Let's go look at all the houses. We laughed at how much I didn't know, you know, table and mesa and whatever. And then we get to the contract, and then I said, okay, so now the rubber hits the road. This is a legal thing. Okay, I'm hiring a translator because at that point, then it was important enough for me to make sure they understood exactly what I was saying. But up until that point, oh my gosh, we had so much fun laughing. Yeah, it was, them laughing at me more than anything else.
Yeah,
I was fine with that.
but I was thinking of you downloading the app for
Oh,
Ethiopia.
yes, yeah.
That was the example that I was looking for, that somebody told you that just the fact that you downloaded the app would show that you care.
Right.
For the
I guess an attitude, I think, is
Yeah.
important.
So
Google Translate app or what app?
No, the
This app.
She just
Oh.
gave, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But any effort that you are willing to make, of course, it will be greatly appreciated. Of course, because that's the language of love. Okay, I'm doing this because I care for you.
Yeah.
So I think I misunderstood the question at the beginning. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, absolutely.